Today we're in Boston and we are starting our Freedom Trail tour at the Boston Common, which is the oldest public park in the U.S., established around 1634. And over the years it's been used for many different purposes before it became more of a public recreational ground. British forces were stationed here. American military forces would conduct training here. They would use it to graze cattle, and at one point they even used it for public hangings and whippings. We're in the old Granary burial ground, one of the oldest cemeteries in the nation, established around 1660. It's the resting place of some very notable Revolutionary War heroes. John Hancock is here, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin's parents are buried here, and the Midnight Rider, Paul Revere. Pause for a quick bite of Chipotle in Boston, taco in a bowl, and we're having it under the watchful gaze of Mr. Franklin. This church you see behind me is the Old South Meeting House, and it was built in 1729. It was originally the largest structure in colonial Boston. It was built as a Puritan house of worship. In addition to discussing politics and, of course, religious services over there, it was in December of 1773 that an overflow meeting here was the beginning of the Boston Tea Party. Just FYI, we're not going to the Old South Meeting House because they're charging you to get in today. It wasn't like that the last time we were here, but it's pretty cool. If we can get back in there, we will, and I'll do another video on that. So this building is the Old State House, built in 1729. It was a hotbed of dissension during the Revolutionary period. It was originally built as the center of colonial and state government, and there was a merchant exchange on the bottom floor as well. And from that balcony right there, on July 18th, 1776, for the first time Bostonians heard the Declaration of Independence read to them. And then just outside of this State House, right where that medallion is on the sidewalk, it's the site of the Boston Massacre. in between Faneuil Hall there and Quincy Market here, both a couple of very popular gathering spots during colonial Boston, and still a place where people gather. There's a lot of shops and restaurants inside both of these buildings, and we found out today a lot of street music.
To the other side, follow Scooby.
We're in the north end of Boston, or also known as Boston's Little Italy. This is the oldest neighborhood in Boston, home to some of the oldest buildings in Boston. One of them is right behind me. This gray building right here is the home of Paul Revere. He lived in this house during the mid to late 1700s, and it's from this house that he left on his midnight ride on April 18th, 1775. Kim and I ate here in Little Italy one time when we were here earlier. One of the cool things about it is on every street, every corner, everywhere you go, there's Italian restaurants and bakeries and shops, and even the architecture is really nice. After leaving Little Italy, we headed to the Old North Church, from where the two signal lanterns were hung for Paul Revere. Now on the Copp's Hill burying ground, which is I think the second oldest burying ground in Boston, and they started burying people here because they had ceased burying people down at the King's Chapel burial ground, but they began burying back there a little bit later. But in this particular burying ground on top of this hill are some notable people like Cotton and Increase Mather are both buried here, and the sexton of the Old North Church, who hung the lanterns based on his observation of the British troop movements, is buried here as well. Along with burying people here, during the Revolution, the British stationed their cannons here to fire across the Charles River onto Bunker Hill during the Battle of Bunker Hill. And while the British were here, they used one of the tombstones as target practice. We're ending our day where we began, in the Boston Common, and it's a great place just to sit in the shade and kind of relax and watch the people going through here. And there's a lot of people. There's a playground behind us just packed with children. You can hear that. There's people walking around, taking some takeout food home for dinner, just hanging out on the park benches like we are. There's a lot of people to watch, and there's also a lot of squirrels to watch. We're back in Boston for day 2 of our Freedom Trail tour, and we went to church this morning. We stopped in for lunch at an Italian place in the north end called Quattro, a pizza and a salad before we hit the road. And it's a beautiful day. It's a great restaurant, and wow, that was loud. And then we're going to go to Bunker Hill, U.S. Constitution today, and see what they are. standing here in front of the Bunker Hill Memorial, and it was here on July 17th, 1775, that about 3,500 American patriots held off 3 assaults by 2,500 British troops, approximately 2,500. On the third assault, the British troops who had bayonets ran up onto the defensive positions. The Patriots had run out of ammunition. They did not have bayonets. So when the British attacked and hand-to-hand fighting ensued, of course, the British took the hill ultimately, but it cost them a great deal in terms of lives and ammunition. This is also the battle where General William Prescott uttered these famous words, "Do not fire until you see the whites of their eyes." Leaving Bunker Hill, we continued to the end of the Freedom Trail. So we're ending our day at one of my favorite places in Boston. That's the USS Constitution, over 200 years old. This is the Navy's oldest commissioned warship afloat. Winner of some 33 battles. It never lost an engagement it was in. And you can still tour it. It's still an active working ship. They take it out to sea, they sail it. And it's very cool to take a tour. One of the cool things about each of these cannons is that the sailors would nickname them, so every one of these cannons along both sides of the ship have names. We've hit the end of the Freedom Trail. Constitution was our last stop. Now we're about to board a ferry, go back to the Boston waterfront, and maybe grab a bite to eat. First place I went to did not take walk-ins, so we ended up at State Street Provisions. We got a burger and some clam chowder. It's our first clam chowder on this trip.